This is morefm. It is 7:45. Well, it is a great pleasure to have in the studio with us Prime Minister John Key. Good morning, Prime Minister.
Good morning, Simon. Gary, how are you?
Very well, thank you.
Thank you for coming in after your big night last night. 500-odd people in the theatre, I believe.
It was great. Fun night.
And you're travelling around at the moment, obviously. So what sort of issues are you finding coming up? What are the sort of three top issues that people are asking you about?
ETS in Christchurch, a little bit on ECANs, although not as strong as I actually thought it would be. And I suppose the budget still, people talking about the different issues in the budget.
Right.
Well, Prime Minister, a young fella jumped on your car last night and a lot of damage to the roof. We've seen it on YouTube. Does that sort of thing unsettle you? Do you kind of go, oh, come on?
No, I'm looking for a panel beater. I know some Christchurch panel beater could just ring into the show now. I've got a job for them.
Good, and we can do a deal too.
They need to realise it was a BMW, not a BMX. There's a difference. Okay? See, I told you the education system needs a bit of work. I tell you what,
Well, it's interesting because about half an hour ago, all the security arrived and we had the chap from the Diplomatic Protection Squad come in here and scope the studio the other day. And I was just asking him a few questions, about his pay scale and whether he carried a weapon. And ask him about your actual personal residence.
Yep.
And he mentioned, there are people that you have on your own home and they're stationed there full time. And I wondered, is that a bit of a bind? Do you get sick of them? I mean, he's a nice fellow.
Oh, they're lovely blokes. Yeah. They strip search Gary, by the way. They were the instructions that I gave them.
I wanted them to.
Get the dogs in, I said. Look, all jokes apart, it's a bit like being in a prison in a way because there's someone with me the whole time. But for obvious reasons, you've got to accept that comes with the territory, and they're tremendously discreet. So a lot of the time, you'd never know they're there.
Even at your own home, you don't notice them there.
Not really, no. But if I go out, it's what is a little bit difficult sometimes. If I want to do something really spontaneous, because I take a group of them with me, I've got to sometimes ring them and say, give them 5 minutes warning.
Yeah, they're
quick.
And what about? Look, I don't want to be too personal because you're the Prime Minister. But moments of intimacy with your wife. Are you ever worried that somebody's listening in?
It's 6 years sitting across in a movie theatre holding hands.
There's a red dotted line, and they're not allowed past that. So I tell you what, they're not allowed near the end of the bed. I've told them once. I said, I'll catch you guys down there again. You'll get smacked. I'll ring Howard Broad.
That is great. It must be a bind having people with you at all times. But I was thinking too about the other bind of your job, and it came up over that whole Tuhoi thing. You made that remark, which I thought was screamingly funny. And went on radio here and said, "Good on you," and all the rest of it because it was a joke.
Yeah, it was a joke.
Do you ever get to the point where you want to say, "For goodness' sake, it's a joke. Let's move on. Shut up. We're going to move on. We had a joke. It was a bit of a laugh. Who cares?" Do you get to that?
Yeah.
Or how do you stop yourself from doing that?
Yeah. Well, the thing is that what happens is I've got a reasonably good sense of humour, I think, and so I give a huge number of speeches in a day, and if I just get up there and give the incredibly dry, straight, boring answer to everything, then people just zone out because no one's going to listen to me for half an hour if there's not some joke or some reference to something that's a bit funny. And that particular instance, it was at a tourism conference. It was just a very light-hearted comment. So and everyone laughed, and in fact, I'd actually said it the night before with Ngāti Porou and Tuhoi there, and they all laughed. It was a great joke. So it was never meant to be offensive.
But I know it wasn't. But do you get sick of the idea that people start picking up on things like that? That would drive me mad. You must feel like saying, for goodness sake, let's move on. Come on.
Yeah, and the problem is that it makes you pull back a little bit, and then I don't know. So sometimes I just go put it beside me and say, look, that's the way I am.
That's the thing I wonder about, whether obviously the demands of you and your job are extreme and that just you have to have significant brain power to recall all the issues. But you don't seem to find it stressful. It would take its toll on a lot of people in that everything you say is so keenly listened to and I might say often recorded.
Yep, absolutely.
So do you find that stressful?
No, but I think what it does is make you a little bit more cautious. I mean, where you get the ridiculous situations, sometimes there'll be, some issue, and the press gallery will come up and say, have you ever met XYZ? Well, if the Simon Barnett or Gary McCormick, the answer is yes. But I meet thousands of people in a day, and they might turn up at some public event I'm at or some lunch I've been to, and it's a ridiculous question because if I say no and I've met them because they've come to something, well then I'm wrong. If I say yes but I've never met them, that can be a problem. And if I say I don't know, people think I'm being dodgy about it, whereas it's a sort of a stupid question. So look, as a general rule, I don't worry about that stuff. I do my best to sort of try and answer them if I can, but if I don't know, I just say, look, you got to check with my office.
Who do you admire?
On the world stage at the moment, I like David Cameron. I think he's going to do a really good job in the UK, but I think he's really up against it. It is a hell of a job over there. They are got huge debts, and he's got to cut expenditure, and Europe's got serious issues. It's, you've seen it with Greece and their problems in other parts of Europe. So I think he's got a tremendous job, but I do respect him a lot. In his own way, Sarkozy is an amazing orator. I mean, the guy is passionate about anything. So he is truly French in the way that he deals with things. I like Obama, just as a person. He is, if you take him off the TV screen, have him standing next to you, he's about your build. He's tall and thin, but he's
quite muscular.
But muscular, yeah.
Thank you.
And nicely toned, trains every morning. And he's a really nice guy. Just
really?
As a person, he's a very nice guy.
That is really good. We are with Prime Minister John Key. Don't go away, more when we come back. This is More FM. This is More FM, that's Train and Drops of Jupiter, 5 minutes to 8. We are joined in the studio with the Prime Minister John Key, having a nice chat actually. Prime Minister, when they say on the news, if one of your cabinet ministers or one of your team has done something a little bit naughty, let's just say, Tim Grosser recently, there was an issue about possibly drinking on a plane, and then Phil Heatley, when they said the Prime Minister is going to reprimand them. I mean, how does that work? Do you take them to your office and, spank them?
Good caning?
I've cut the cane up, actually, much to my regret. I'll give them a ring, have a chat with them. Yeah, sort of say, look, on balance, find out what's going on, have a bit of a talk to them about it. The ministers are really conscious of the fact that they're so much in the public eye, and no minister wants to be embarrassed. So the worst penalty they get is when it's on the front page of the paper or on the news. Yeah. So it really doesn't take a lot from me. I don't have to go and yell and scream at them. I don't do that anyway. Yeah. But I will just point out that was pretty dumb.
Yeah, well, I just asked about your style of leadership, and obviously backstage, the cabinet meetings and all that sort of thing. Obviously there's a lot of material coming through. Sooner or later you have to make decisions. You have to stop people from talking too long. Do you take a pretty tough line with people? Are you firm, polite? How do you just go about it? Yeah,
well, I think it's very collaborative. So we really do go to cabinet and have discussions. The previous government, with all due respect, Helen really made the call and just went in there and said, this is up, no real discussion. We do have quite good discussions. But look, in the end, what I've learned since I've been there is that so many decisions are finely balanced, and you'd think they make themselves, and some do. It's obvious you've got to go one way, but so many of them are you going to do this, or are you going to do that, are you going to do this, or are you going to do that? And in the end, the Prime Minister of the day just has to say, well, on balance, I've heard of the arguments, this is what we're doing. Right. And then people will accept that, the Cabinet will accept that. If you roll over top of them without a decent discussion, in my view, that's a bad way to operate in any business or anything you're doing. But you got to make the calls, and I understand that.
There's so much to talk about and so little time, but the Prime Minister's kindly given us quite a bit of time, so we might even have a word after 8 o'clock. Just very quickly, in 60 seconds, your former life, before you were Prime Minister, you used to flat with a guy we work with, Stu Hargraves.
Oh, Stewie, yeah, great bloke.
And so he told me, he said, give me a note here, he said, ask the Prime Minister about when he was a pool attendant in the early 80s.
Oh, yeah, me and my Speedos, I tell you what.
Really?
Media ever get those photos?
Really?
I'm gonzo. Pete Hodgson should be looking through those. He should be down there at the Warranui swimming pool, flicking through the things. I got some amazing stories from there.
Did you ever rescue anybody?
Oh, yeah. Oh, hell yeah. Oh,
hundreds of people, thousands probably.
Yeah. When I wasn't putting the coconut oil on my chest, The only minor problem was it's an indoor pool, so the UV rays weren't that great, I've got to admit. But yeah, when I wasn't greasing myself up, no, it was great.
And the first car you had was an old Ford Escort that it says here that ran best when Brona was in it with you.
Oh yeah, Bob the Escort. No, that is not a true story. See, there's another example. See, your fiction's got ahead of fact. My first car.
I was going to say,
my God,
you don't
that's it. Okay, that's it. You got the story.
You don't want to be quite so honest.
My first car was a Morris Minor, and it was affectionately known as Vicar's Daughter. Now, I'll tell you why, because I bought it from the Vicar's Daughter around the road, and that lying scoundrel didn't tell me it was completely full of rust. I knew nothing about cars, and one day, I'd had it for about 2 months, and it was leaking a bit of oil. One of my mates who knew something about a car got underneath it, and I remember getting out with this look of horror on his face. He goes, "Ever heard the term rust bucket? You own one, have a look at this." So I had a look, and I grabbed a bit of it, and I went, "Oh, what do you do about this?" And he said, "It's the only one thing for it." I was thinking he was saying the panel beaters. He goes, "You got to sell it, mate. You gotta sell it." So I sold it.
Did you manage to flick it onto a pensioner or something?
Then I went around and I had a chat to that Vicar's Daughter. I said, "You need to get into church on Sunday and do a bit of serious apologising, okay?"
That is so funny. We are joined by the Prime Minister, John Key. We've got birthday calls next, and he's going to stay with us for a little bit after 8 o'clock. This is More FM.